My name's Patrick Bellew. I'm the Errol Saarinen Visiting Professor of Architecture at Yale University. My specialisation is sustainable design, and I've always been very inspired by Buckminster Fuller. Noel Murphy's movie, The Last Dymaxion, is a wonderful vehicle for spreading the knowledge and understanding of Buckminster Fuller's work in all areas of design, and I'm very happy to back it, and I hope that you will too.
Tonight, Noel Murphy's Dymaxion, Buckminster Fuller's Dream Restored. He is also the writer, producer, and director of the one-man play and film Buckminster Fuller Live. Mr. Murphy comes by his interest in Buckminster Fuller and in cars naturally. His great-grandfather was a co-founder of General Motors. Additionally, from the age of 10, Mr. Murphy was introduced to, one might even say indoctrinated into, Fuller's ideas by the inventor's student, Dr. Hugh Morgan Hill. Later, Mr. Murphy would study under Dr. Hill at the Harvard University Divinity School. Mr. Murphy has an extensive background in leading corporate and nonprofit training seminars specializing in individual effectiveness and continuing education. After Mr. Murphy will be available, and we'll have a queue for questions in our usual Q&A format. But now, please join me in welcoming Noel Murphy to the podium. Noel Murphy.
Buckminster Fuller used to stand and stare at the audience for a few moments. I'm not an architect, and I'm not a professor. I have spent the last 15 years studying leadership. My background is more behavioral science, and now I'm a filmmaker. And I've just spent the last 2 years immersed really just above the nostril line in the ideas and the theories and the history of Buckminster Fuller. When I was 10 years old, I did a special internship at Boston University that has been mentioned under Dr. Hugh Morgan Hill. His teacher, as you heard, was Buckminster Fuller. I was learning as best I could Bucky as a 10-year-old, and I wanted to meet this guy, and I wanted to be part of the great world game meetings they were having. I stayed home in Boston and subsequently never did get to meet Bucky or hear him speak live, but I heard he did want to meet me. Dr. Hill, also known as Brother Blue, a Yale graduate, star of Shakespeare Theater, friend of Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, and the United Nations official storyteller. He was my mentor for 38 years. I set out to send what I would call a lifetime thank you to him by studying his teacher, Bucky Fuller, and creating a tribute project, but I didn't know at the time what it was going to be. In the end, I decided to write and perform this one-man show performing as Buckminster Fuller on stage, and I dedicated it to Dr. Hill and his wife, Dr. Ruth Hill, a Smithsonian curator. The production was at the end of the summer of 2009, and that autumn, Dr. Hill became sick and he passed away. And now it seemed that the synergy light had really gone on here, and the circle had come all the way around. Shortly after producing the one-man show, a friend of mine who's an aeronautics engineer sent me an article saying that Bucky's Dymaxion car was being restored. He said, hey, this is the car that was in the one-man show. You really got to get on this. It seemed like an all-around bad idea to do a documentary about Buckminster Fuller, so that's exactly what I did. The more I went into the research at Stanford Special Collections, and interview after interview, and the more I got into it, the more confounded I became. To quote Robert Stern, architecture is an art, but most of all, obsession, which requires an openness to the cross currents of ideas, welcoming what is new and challenging, while measuring the conflicting claims of the present against the standards that prevailed in the past. Architects do not provide answers as much as they ask questions. All of these things came up while I was investigating Bucky. I discovered to even approach Bucky Fuller at all, I must carefully cross the line into the realm of the architect. And I did figure out that about 90% of everybody, including scholars, are confused by Bucky, and he seems to blow everybody's mind just the same. Buckminster Fuller was known to almost everybody as Bucky. And he's mostly known for the geodesic dome, such as the one that he designed for the 1967 World's Fair in Montreal, the Dymaxion house, which was a template for manufactured housing, and the Dymaxion car, which influenced the VW bus and the Prius. There's no question that this man saw the world differently from most people, and it really affected what he did and why he did it. He's been called the Leonardo da Vinci of our times. Bucky Fuller taught his daughter Allegra Einstein's special relativity when she was 4 years old. And when I have studied and gotten to Bucky's essence, I've suddenly had a very strong sense of what's possible for all of us. One Bucky legend in particular is about him not speaking for 2 years. Of course, he did speak to his wife and daughter, but more importantly, what he actually accomplished during that time was far more important than being actually silent. It seems that what he did was eradicate his mind of as many preconceived ideas, notions as possible, as many beliefs where he didn't do the thinking or the experiencing himself personally. Basically, he attempted to order himself for maximum thought performance. Bucky pioneered comprehensive anticipatory design science, focusing on the process of how to go about solving whole system problems. When these problems are viewed as a whole, solutions arise that address multiple interrelated issues in ways that otherwise would have not been apparent if addressed each issue in isolation. Design science, in most general terms, maintains that faithful observation of the universe is the basis of all successful invention. The idea, therefore, is to tap into the exquisite workings of nature and then ask yourself, what needs doing in my world? Bucky said, I look for what needs to be done. After all, that's how the universe designs itself. I did not set out to design a geodesic dome. I set out to discover the principles operative in the universe. For all I knew, that could have led to a pair of flying slippers. Bucky was profoundly concerned with the dangers of over-specialization, which, taken to an extreme, eclipses general adaptability. Bucky began thinking comprehensively during his World War I Navy experience. Officers in 1917 were still trained as comprehensivists. Everybody had to be capable of handling any job on a ship. Voice communication with shore was not yet available. The need for all members of a crew to act quickly in an emergency demanded quick, comprehensive thinking, and the sailing vessel itself was a natural whole system, every member of the crew working toward the success of the whole ship. It seemed to Bucky a very workable way to operate, and he began to see that our entire planet as one system and deliberately set out to explore the interrelatedness of human affairs. He called the world Spaceship Earth to symbolize this. Da Vinci, Galileo, the Wright brothers, Edison, all threw their hats over the wall, declaring their intentions, not having any idea how they would get there. They were dealing with the unknown, with the certainty, though, that their journeys would lead to somewhere very special. And I think Bucky might take his place amongst these visionaries. Here's a Bucky quote. I never think of beauty when I design, but when I'm done, if the result is not beautiful, I know it's wrong. The Last Dymaxion, not unlike many Bucky projects, is a perpetual work in progress. There are about 30 hours of interviews, and sorting out the footage is like untangling coat hangers. We're currently enrolling backing for the other half of the film to complete, and as you watch, you'll see the possibility of more creative animation, and our animation team is preparing for the next phase now. PBS International is waiting patiently for this to be completed, and we also have our sights set on the Sundance Film Festival. But we know full well that we should work and rework, that The Last Dymaxion may be the only chance that people have to meet Bucky, and we want them to be inspired and moved around what one individual can do and can contribute to the world. I talked to my brother, who's a neuroscientist, and he wanted to remind me that nobody can get Bucky in one night. Well, I'll say this. I think for an individual discovering Bucky, it can be about who you are during the discovery process, and also about, in the final analysis, what you've experienced. I hope that the journey begins tonight for you, if it hasn't already, to meet Bucky. And I'll say I'm fairly certain that the people in this room are the future leadership of the worlds of architecture and design, and so I won't let the opportunity pass me by to ask you to think about what is possible for this film in achieving the highest quality and the farthest reach, And I realize I'm not going to have time to talk to everybody, even though I'd really like to. But I've created a special email address, yale@dymaxionfilm.com. So please write me, tell me what you liked and not so much. And my favorite would be to have ideas that you got while watching. Again, delighted and I'm grateful to be here.
What everybody needs to know is that we're all participants in the world game in one way or another, and everything we do. So we have the ability to change the way we do things in very simple ways. I'm hugely supportive of this project, and I hope you will be too.